1 year after Part 2, Part 3 to WazzoTV Scratch Saga has finally been released. With such a long wait, the expectations were high, but did it prove to be worth the hours of refreshing WazzoTV Scratch profile? Or did the finale fall short of its massive hype? Let's give it an analysis and find out. The finale to the Scratch Saga picks right up where the last part left off. Wazzo, Astro, and Scratch Cat have chased Gobo down, only to find out he was really just a henchman working for a band scratcher named Cash. He gives us all a nice evil villain speech, and it's enough to fire up Wazzo. Scratch Cat warns him not to rush into the situation, but Wazzo is so protective over Scratch that he charges Cash anyway. As Scratch Cat feared, it only takes one anime-esque shot for Cash to teleport Wazzo and Astro away. The two Scratchers wake up in a prison cell, where all the other Scratchers are conveniently located. Water Girl shows them the file on Cash she found in the Scratch archives, and they learn he got himself banned from Scratch after he attempted to take over the website. Having been betrayed by Cash and also fearing being murdered by Avidana, Gobo decides to ally with the Scratchers by sharing his knowledge of the Scratch HQ. The only thing in their way are the cell bars, but Fuzzy Weasel gets buff and they are quickly released. After an uncomfortable elevator ride, the group arrives in the main lobby. Cash is waiting for them on the other side, and he says some more villain stuff before warping behind a laser sensor wall, leaving the Scratchers with his evil sprites. Gobo tells Wazzo they can bypass the wall by going to the power room and shutting down the power for the entire Scratch HQ. The sick men leave for the power room while the rest of the Scratchers take on the sprites. A battle ensues as the sprites use the code blocks Cash gifted them to wreak havoc on the Scratchers. Everyone is faring pretty poorly, but again, Fuzzy Weasel gets buff and distracts the sprites while Wazzo sneaks past. The stickmen pull out the power plug, shutting down the laser sensors and granting access to the database where Cash awaits. Wazzo's about to rush into battle again when Astro stops him. The two start into an argument, Astro saying that Wazzo can't keep running off on his own, and Wazzo claiming that he cares about Scratch more than Astro does because he's never left it. Astro tells Wazzo that Scratch is still important to him, but he had to move on at some point if he wanted to become a better coder. Wazzo agrees to work with Astro, and the two enter the database room to finish their fight against Cash. And they're captured in 5 seconds. But anyway, holding Wazzo in the air with his magical red force powers, Cash explains the two of them aren't all that different. Both of them presumably love Scratch more than anyone else on the website, as they haven't abandoned it like their older friends. So being the villainy villain that he is, Cash offers Wazzo to join him in ruling Scratch the way it should be. But in another anime-esque moment, Wazzo has flashbacks of all of the times Astro and Scratch Cat advised him to let things go, and they convince him not to join Cash. Infuriated by Wazzo's defiance, Cash raises him up in the air, conveniently losing focus on Astro and Scratch Cat, and prepares to destroy Wazzo. But just before it seems like Wazzo's done for, Astro uses the new skills he learned at college to hack Cash's elementary Scratch program, sending him to suffer in Scratch Jr. for eternity. Peace is restored once again at Scratch, and with a moving speech from Barack Obama, the true Scratch 3.0 is open. Having learned his lesson from Scratch Cat and Astro, Wazzo decides it's time to move on and pursue things outside of Scratch. He leaves with the other former Scratchers, and even though he knows he'll never come back, he reminds the audience to remember to not be sad, because Scratch isn't only about just one person. So yeah, I think the story has improved a lot this time. Obviously this episode will be the most exciting because it's the climax, but the creators did a good job of balancing out the action with story and humor. The entire project clocks in at 20 minutes, and it just shows how efficiently that time was used, since it never felt that long or slow like the other parts sometimes did. Even though I knew Cash was going to be defeated in the end, I still felt invested in the episode and was rooting for each of the Scratchers. And speaking of, there were a lot more Scratchers featured in this part, and mostly everyone got a line or got to display their personality through their art. Now, in my plot summary, I did poke fun at some of the cliches, mostly the ones surrounding Cash, and the plot conveniences. While we'll get to Cash later, at the end of the day, the contrivances don't really matter to me that much. I feel like I'd be getting a little too nitpicky to complain about them, even for my standards, and I understand they had to be written in because of time restrictions. The project pretty much says, yeah, we know it's convenient, just watch this cool fight scene, and I'd prefer that over a contrived explanation that just wastes time. Overall, the story is better paced and probably the best out of the 3 parts. It has its tropes and contrivances, but good action, humor, and story pretty much overshadow them in the end. let's start off with the main heroes of the Scratch Saga, Wazzo, Astro, and Scratch Cat. In this final part of the series, Wazzo's character arc of learning to let things go takes center stage. His stubbornness of protecting Scratch is what causes all of the Scratchers to be captured, and he almost lets it get the better of him before facing off with Cash again until Astro stops him. Both Astro and Scratch Cat serve as mentors to Wazzo. I think Astro was a better character to help Wazzo grow since he can relate to Wazzo more. He actually used to be a Scratcher and ended up becoming a better programmer after he left the site for college. I guess Scratch Cat has experience with obsessive Scratchers and walking away from things, but the only times we see this are when Scratch Cat runs away in the Scratch Saga, and in my opinion, it doesn't give him and Wazzo as strong of a relationship. Either way, Wazzo's arc is wrapped up well in this episode. The creators made it noticeable enough that the younger audience could understand it, but not so repetitive that it felt hammered in. Everything about it was pretty natural, and it added some more meaning to the series besides just being Scratch fanfiction. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, we have our villains of the series, Gobo and Cash. And this is probably my main criticism of the Scratch Saga finale. While Cash is a cool villain, his reveal kind of made Gobo's motivations feel worthless and forced his redemption to be rushed. It seems like his big speech about being treated like a joke was all just an act, and I feel like that's wasted potential. I liked Gobo as a villain not only because he's funny, but because he also worked as a way to connect the Scratch Saga and the Slash Saga. You can make the case that Cash worked as a good foil to Wazzo, helping connect with that theme of being too obsessed over Scratch, yet Gobo could have basically done the same thing. He was obsessed with being loved by all of the Scratchers, and when they tossed him aside as a joke, he wasn't going to let go of Scratch until they learned to appreciate him. I know that sounds a little convoluted, but my main point is that the creators should have just picked a villain. Want Gobo to be the villain? Keep the first two parts as they are, have Gobo make a device that mind controls the sprites or something so we can have that big battle at the end, then have Wazzo and Astro confront him. Then you could also solve the problem of Astro's escape feeling less like dumb luck. Maybe the trap Gobo puts him in is strong enough to hold Astro down, but once Wazzo has distracted him for long enough, he's able to escape and defeat Gobo. Want Cash as the villain? In the first two parts, he can do the same things as Gobo, just maybe include a little more coding stuff. Then have part 3 stay the same as well. The only problem is with these two versions of the story is that Gobo does play a crucial role in the finale. Still, you could just have someone like Astro figure out where to go because he's got programming experience from college, or maybe have Gobo/Cash trap Scratch Cat in the cell with everyone, and because he's literally Scratch Cat, he can help the Scratchers navigate the ins and outs of the base. Basically, having Cash appear in the last episode kind of throws away all the build-up we got for Gobo, which makes them both feel a little bit empty. All of the characters were well done and enjoyable in the series finale, and in the end, the villains didn't ruin the episode for me. Wazzo's character growth was a good inclusion that made this finale have more impact, and it worked as a fitting lesson to teach as after many years and projects, Wazzo is finally moving on from Scratch. There's not much to say here, since the animation is pretty standard for a Scratch project. Even though this part is the longest of the three, I felt like there were more segments of smooth animation and a lot of different camera angles, which keeps things interesting. One of the main appeals of this series animation-wise is getting to see all the Scratchers' art styles put together. Everyone gets a chance to express themselves through an animation or facial expression, and I think it's a subtle but cool way of showing just how many different people make up Scratch. One of the highlights of the art and animation I would say is Cash. He's able to be pretty expressive with his somewhat simple face, and different little details like his eyes being rough around the edges or little particles floating around him as he glitches makes him all the better. Overall, the animation was pretty solid in this part, and I never got too bored of looking at one scene.
You're upside down and inside out, and you can feel it.
The Scratch Saga has exploded with popularity, even more than Wazzo's usual projects. I guess it's because it kind of represents a Scratcher's life cycle. You start out admiring other Scratchers, then you grow yourself and make new friends, and as you get older and realize those animations you were super proud of a few years ago are pretty bad, you leave. The Scratch Saga will be a weird little part of my childhood that I probably won't be able to explain to anyone, but I'll remember it well nonetheless. I've gotten a lot of support for these reviews, and the creators have even been nice enough to reach out to me. So, as usual, thank you all for watching. Hopefully my review has done the finale justice, since I actually wrote a script this time. Make sure you check out the original Scratch Saga in the description, and check out my channel for reviews of the first 2 parts. I'll see you all next time. Bye!